World War II is my favorite time period to talk about, and really all the 1940s I love talking about, and is an easy way to get my attention for a game. And I also really love horror, so when you combine these two things and have a horror game set during World War II, that is a very easy way to catch my attention, which is what Mortanis Prisoners very much was when I saw it while looking for a new game in the Xbox store. A game that looked really interesting, and the description being that you are in a Nazi prison camp and are trying to escape immediately caught my attention, and I was sold. And with the game being very cheap, I was going in with thinking this would either be a good game or an awful game because how cheap it is. And after finishing it, I just knew I needed to make a video about it.
June 17th, 1944. Office of the concentration camp. A young woman named Justina is working at a desk. While the war rages beyond the camp walls, she remains in the very heart of evil, hidden beneath the guise of her ordinary job. Suddenly, 3 men approach her desk. A German officer, flanked by 2 soldiers, steps forward with authority. "We know everything, Justina," the officer says. "We know you're a member of the underground partisan movement." Justina feels her heart begin to race. Her palms grow sweaty, and tears start to well up in her eyes. "For your traitorous activities, you are sentenced to death," the officer continues. "You'll be sent for medical experiments, and you won't like them." Despite the fear, Justina refuses to show weakness. She meets the officer's gaze with courage and says,
"I won't regret what I've done. If it brings even a little justice, I am ready to face the consequences."
For a moment, a strange mix of respect and contempt flickers in the officer's eyes. But within seconds, he orders her to be seized and taken away. Sometime later, Justina wakes up in a dark, cold space. It's cramped, and she feels a faint draft from somewhere above her head.
This game starts with our character getting caught by the Nazis and then being sent to a prison camp, and then the game just starts with no other explanation or anything. And now we have to try and get out. We start in the hospital, and after finding a Luger pistol, we explore the hospital and come across our first creature, which after killing it during my first playthrough, it immediately started twerking, which was just the perfect way to start the game. As we explore the hospital, we see ghostly figures, and this is something we will see throughout the entire game, and it is haunting as we get to see the souls of what were most likely some of the staff or other prisoners who were experimented on. However, when we get to the administration offices, one of them falls on top of us. I have no clue why this happens because it never happens again, so I don't understand what's the point of this was, and also why does it look like our character puts her hand on the ghost's cheek and caresses it? There are puzzles throughout this game which very much remind me of Resident Evil, with our first one being having to find some gears and we have to put them in order, and this game has one of the best features I've ever seen put into a game, and that is the ability to skip the puzzle. Which, while I can see people saying this takes away from the game because you can automatically finish the game, and I can kind of see that. However, not every puzzle allows you to do this, and for someone like me who is really bad with puzzles, this is a godsend, because I can continue with the game without being stuck.
The generator's empty. I think I saw fuel in the storage room at administration.
We have to get gas in order to power up the generator. However, we are blocked up by a flesh wall and have to go through a hole in the wall in order to get back to storage, and have to go through the technical rooms in order to get back to the administration room. However, we aren't alone. As we make our way through the technical rooms, these giant hands will like haunt us and try and kill us, and for some reason this hallway starts rotating while we walk through it, and I did not know this game didn't pause when you were reading documents and got jump scared by this creature. Which now is probably a good time to talk about the main enemies in this game, which I believe are supposed to be the prisoners who the Nazis have turned into monsters. And some of them are men and some of them are women, and all of them most likely prisoners that your character knew. However, your character Justina never mentions or acts as if she knows any of these people in this camp, and truthfully doesn't really say anything throughout this game. She says a few things, but she doesn't really say anything, even though she does have a voice. So some of these monsters will just walk up towards you and hit you, causing you to be stunned, but sometimes they will be able to hit you from a distance and can kill you much more easily compared to the original kinds. The giant hands will just show up and honestly are more annoying than anything. While the shotgun can one-shot it and allow you to progress, it just devours pistol ammo, and the knife is completely worthless against this thing. The Luger is the weapon you will use the most in this game, and the weapon you will find the most ammo for, while the shotgun, while you can find the shotgun in technical rooms, and it can one-shot every enemy, the shotgun shells are much harder to find compared to pistol ammo. You start with a knife at the beginning of the game, and it is okay when you don't have any ammo, but it isn't completely worthless like how it is in Resident Evil. If you have the Luger or the shotgun equipped, you can always check on how much bullets are in the gun, which can very much help you prepare for whenever a monster shows up, and also helps you keep track of how much ammo you have. After solving a statue puzzle, the chains that were holding the giant heart that belonged to the hands that have been haunting us throughout this area fall off, and the heart gets destroyed and creates a really cool look with it raining blood while we have to fight our way back to the hospital.
This can't be a good sign.
Don't worry, Justina. I'm sure a body of the monster we already killed twitching is totally fine and nothing to worry about. So I think this game's horror is great at times and does a good job scaring you, but I wouldn't say that this is the scariest game ever. Throughout both of my playthroughs of this game, I was never so scared to the point I couldn't continue because of how scared I was. However, the monsters in this game can absolutely scare the shit out of you, especially these fast ones. The animation can look weird, but when they are running towards you, it does scare the crap out of me every time. And while the enemy variety is very small in this game, I don't think the game suffers from it due to how short the game is, and also the fact I never got bored while fighting them. After opening the safe and getting the key to the doctor's room, we get a jar of acid and get rid of the biomass blocking our way, and we get the key to the roof where we have a boss fight with a giant eye who is apparently the warden, and this game's controls aren't designed for boss battles. You may have noticed that there hasn't really been any mention of, in my opinion, this game's biggest selling point, and that is the fact that you are in a Nazi prison camp, and yet there hasn't been any mention of it other than the opening cutscene. This is a perfect setting for a horror game that no one has done. However, this game doesn't take advantage of this as a setting, and really feels like it was an afterthought because they needed something to make this game stand out. The most you would get to remind you that you are in a Nazi prison camp are the flags with an iron cross on them, but that's it, and even the notes you find don't do enough to help. This game's story is mainly told through notes you will find, which I don't mind whenever a game's story is told through notes. However, a big problem is that there aren't enough notes you can find throughout the game to really give you a story or anything. You will find some notes about how the war is going bad and how some of the prisoners were planning an uprising, but then they were all killed, and then that's mainly it. There are many spots throughout this game where there could have been more notes or diaries or journals or letters or something to let us know more about what is going on in the prison or what they think about the prisoners, or even what talk about Nazism as an idea and talk about what they believe. But instead, there are so many areas where your character would just look at something, just say that none of it is useful, and that's it. I don't even think they would have to make the game longer. They could keep it the exact same length, but just add more notes, or there are telephones and radios you can find, but they don't do anything. The game could have had phones start ringing. When you pick them up, you can learn something about the story or the lore, about the prison. With the radios, you can have them give information about the war that is going on. You can hear the Nazis freaking out because they are losing to the Americans and the British and the Soviets. We find a note talking about how the war isn't going well and they had to reuse the same guards multiple times, hoping the prisoners wouldn't notice. And it's dated July 1944, so D-Day has already happened. The Germans have very much been pushed out of Russia by this point. The game could have absolutely allowed us to hear reports from the German soldiers through the radios. Also, it doesn't help that really the only reference we have in this game that we are in a Nazi prison camp are the flags with the Iron Cross on it. Meanwhile, throughout the entire game, we never once see a swastika once, which was really more of the more than anything, that was the symbol of the Nazis, more than the Iron Cross was. But there's also zero references to Hitler, and there are no pictures of him, which a Nazi prison camp would have absolutely have throughout the prison, because he was their god. He was God to them. I understand if they didn't want to go too hard with it, and give us a bunch of notes allowing us to see how they thought, what they believe, and fill the game with Nazi imagery. I fully understand that. However, at that point, don't make a game with this as your setting, and don't add a disclaimer at the beginning of the game saying that you don't support any of the violence or any of the evil that was committed, because it really feels like a last-minute decision. It feels completely pointless to add this, since it's such a small part of the game. We don't even hear about the group that our character Justina was part of ever again, and it was the entire reason she was arrested and thrown into prison, because she was found out to be a spy for a group called the Underground Partisan Movement. Who was this group? Who was in this group? What was this group's purpose? How come they never came and helped Justina to escape? Did they try and only for all of them to get killed? Did they start the uprising? This game never brings it up, and we never learn anything. And immediately after the game starts, the Grim Reaper just shows up and tells us we are in purgatory for punishment for our crimes. And it feels like the game immediately throws away the entire reason you're in this game, and the entire setting feels like it was a last-minute thing added because they needed something for this horror game to stand out. We never even find out who Mortanis is, which, the title being Mortanis Prisoners, you could imagine we would learn something about them. About whoever Mortanis is. Is Mortanis the warden that we fight, or was he killed before the events of the game? The game never says anything at all about it, and while it doesn't ruin the game, these two things are my biggest problem with this game, because this is a really cool setting that they could have done so much with, and could have told a really cool story as well. After defeating the warden, we get a picture along with two other pictures that we were found throughout the rest of the prison. We learn the code to a lock, and after getting scared again while reading a note, we grab a statue that, along with a bunch of other statues, we unlock a safe and get the key in order to escape the prison to freedom.
It's time to get out of this cursed place.
Mortanis Prisoners is a great game, and I highly recommend it to everyone. I just wish it was just more committed to the game setting, because everything else about this game is so cool. I love the gameplay, the setting, the sound design. I just wish it did more with the story, and really went hard with the fact that you are in a Nazi prison camp and have to escape, because that is a perfect setting for a horror game that is unfortunately doesn't deliver on. This game was pretty cheap. I think it was only like $8, and it was totally worth it. I highly recommend everyone go out and play this, and I really hope the company that made this does more in the future, because if I don't know if this was their first game, but if it was, they did a good job. Like the things that they didn't do well with this, they could really much like they could very much fix. But this game really was worth the $8 that, and like I think it might have even been cheaper. I don't even really remember how much it was. I just remember really, I just remember it didn't cost that much, and this game really was worth it. I really highly recommend everyone go and play this.